I am sitting in a downtown attorney's office holding a pen that feels heavier than it should. The divorce papers in front of me have my signature at the bottom, clean and final. 6 months ago, my wife Jessica told me to be a man. She said it with such contempt, like I was failing some test I never knew I was taking. I thought being considerate made me a good husband. She thought it made me weak. Funny how the person who demanded I take charge never saw it coming when I finally did. It all started 6 months ago when she said those 3 words that changed everything. Before I tell you how being told to be a man actually taught me what manhood really means, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe because this story has twists you will not see coming. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Jessica and I had been married for 3 years when everything started falling apart. We met through mutual friends at an outdoor music festival in Austin, Texas. She was a marketing coordinator with this infectious laugh, and I was a software engineer who somehow managed to make her laugh even harder. Our courtship felt natural. We took road trips on weekends, cooked elaborate meals together on Sunday nights, and never missed our Friday movie tradition. I thought we had built something solid. I have always been the kind of person who values input. When we needed new furniture, I asked Jessica what style she preferred. When choosing a restaurant, I wanted to make sure she was in the mood for that kind of food. If we were planning a vacation, I would present options and let her weigh in. To me, this was respect. This was partnership. I genuinely believed that considering your partner's feelings in every decision was what separated a good marriage from a mediocre one. My parents had always made decisions together, talking through every choice, and their marriage had lasted 37 years. I wanted that same foundation. Jessica seemed happy with this arrangement, or at least I thought she did. She would smile when I asked her opinion, tell me I was thoughtful, say she appreciated how much I cared about what she wanted. For 3 years, this was our normal. We were the couple our friends pointed to as an example: stable, communicative, respectful of boundaries. Looking back now, I wonder if she was already growing tired of it, if something was shifting beneath the surface that I was too content to notice. Around 6 months ago, subtle changes started appearing. Jessica joined a new yoga class and made friends with 2 women who seemed to have a powerful influence on her. Tiffany was recently divorced and very vocal about independent women not needing men to complete them. Kendra was single by choice, living what she called a boss babe lifestyle, constantly posting about self-love and never settling. I had no problem with Jessica having friends or exploring new interests. I encouraged it. I thought it was healthy for her to have her own social circle outside our marriage, but the changes kept coming. Jessica started using phrases like personal growth and finding herself and not being defined by marriage. She talked about how she needed space to discover who she really was as an individual. Again, I supported this. I figured every person needs room to grow, and a strong marriage should allow for that. What I did not anticipate was that her growth would somehow require shrinking me in the process. She began coming home later sometimes, not until 9 or 10 at night. When I would ask about her day, her answers became shorter, less detailed. The woman who used to tell me every funny thing that happened at work now barely shared anything at all. Then came the night that changed the trajectory of everything. I had been planning something special for us. It was the anniversary of the day we first met, not our wedding anniversary, but the actual day we locked eyes across that festival crowd 5 years earlier. I always remembered that date because it felt significant, like the universe had aligned just right. I wanted to take her to this new Italian restaurant downtown that had gotten incredible reviews. But instead of just making the reservation, I did what I always did. I asked her first. Jessica was in the bedroom changing out of her work clothes when I brought it up. I stood in the doorway casual, thinking this would be a nice surprise. I asked if she wanted to go out for dinner that weekend to celebrate our meeting anniversary. I told her about the restaurant, mentioned the reviews, said I thought it would be romantic. I was smiling. I was excited. I thought she would be too. Instead, she turned to me with this look I had never seen before. Irritation mixed with something else. Disappointment, maybe. She sighed, not a gentle sigh, but the kind that makes you feel like you just asked the dumbest question in the world. Can you just make a decision without asking me everything? Her voice had an edge that caught me completely off guard. I stood there confused, trying to understand what I had done wrong. I explained that I wanted to make sure she was available, that she actually wanted Italian food, that I was trying to be considerate of her preferences. That is not respect, Archer. Her words came out sharp, cutting through the air between us. That is you being unable to lead. Be a man for once. The sentence hung there, heavy and final. Be a man. As if everything I had been doing, all the consideration, all the communication, all the partnership I thought we were building, was somehow evidence that I was not man enough. I felt something crack inside my chest, a small fracture that I tried to ignore. I attempted to explain myself. I talked about mutual respect in marriage, about how relationships work best when both people have a voice about boundaries and communication being the foundation of everything we had built. I was not being weak. I was being thoughtful. There is a difference, and I needed her to see that difference. But Jessica just shook her head, her expression cold, in a way that made me feel like a stranger. I am tired of your so-called boundaries, she said. They are just excuses for you not taking charge. She walked past me into the bathroom and closed the door. Not slammed it, but closed it with this quiet finality that felt worse than any argument we had ever had. I stood in that hallway for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, had just told me I was not enough. Not in those exact words, but the message was clear. My way of loving her was wrong. My consideration was weakness. My respect was failure. I went to bed that night on the couch, not because she kicked me out, but because I needed space to think. Sleep did not come easy. I kept replaying the conversation, examining every word, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. The weeks that followed were brutal in their consistency. Jessica found fault with everything. My clothes were too plain. My job was not ambitious enough. My hobbies were boring. When I tried to change, buying new shirts talking about career advancement, suggesting we try rock climbing or some other adventurous activity, she would roll her eyes and say, I was trying too hard. A real man does not need to prove anything. I was trapped in an impossible situation. Do nothing, and I was too passive. Do something, and I was overcompensating. There was no winning. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. I had left work at 4 because I finished a project ahead of schedule, and my manager told me to take off. I walked into our apartment expecting it to be empty, since Jessica usually did not get home until 7 at the earliest. But I heard her voice coming from the bedroom, bright and animated in a way I had not heard directed at me in months. She was laughing, really laughing, the kind of genuine joy that used to be reserved for our private moments. I walked closer and realized she was on a video call. Through the slightly open door, I could see her sitting on the edge of our bed, laptop in front of her face lit up with that brilliant smile. When she noticed me standing there, her expression shifted instantly. The joy vanished, replaced by something guarded. She said a quick goodbye and closed the laptop. Just talking to Tiffany, she explained, her voice flat. But something felt off. The tone she had been using did not match how she spoke with Tiffany. I had heard her talk to her yoga friends before. This was different, warmer, more intimate. I wanted to ask. I wanted to push. But I also remembered all the lectures about boundaries, about trust, about not being a paranoid husband. So I swallowed my suspicion and nodded. I went to the kitchen and started making dinner, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut that something was very wrong. That feeling would not go away, though. It sat with me through dinner, through the evening, through another night of sleeping in separate rooms. We were roommates now, not partners. The distance between us had grown from inches to miles, and I had no idea how to cross it. My best friend Devin had known me since college. We had been through everything together: failed exams, bad breakups, career changes, and now, apparently, a failing marriage. He noticed the change in me immediately. I tried to hide it, tried to act like everything was fine, but Devin had this way of seeing through pretense. We met up at our usual spot, a dive bar near the university where we used to hang out when we were younger and stupid. Over cheap beer and greasy burgers, I finally let it out. All of it. The criticism, the contempt, the feeling that I was constantly failing some invisible test. Devin listened without interrupting, which was rare for him. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and gave me this look that was equal parts sympathy and concern. Man, something is off. Trust your gut. He had always been the more cynical one between us, the one who saw red flags where I saw misunderstandings. But he also knew when to be careful. Do not confront without proof, though. Get your ducks in a row first. He told me about his cousin who had gone through a messy divorce, how the guy had confronted his wife without evidence and ended up looking paranoid and controlling. The divorce got ugly, expensive, and emotionally devastating. His advice stuck with me. Get your ducks in a row. Figure out what is really happening before you make any moves. I went home that night with a clearer head than I had in weeks. I was not going to be reactive. I was not going to be the crazy jealous husband, but I also was not going to be blind. If something was wrong, I needed to know. And more importantly, I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. The opportunity came exactly 1 week later, though I did not recognize it as an opportunity at first. Mr. Harrison, the senior director at my company, called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. I thought maybe I had made a mistake on a recent project, or perhaps there were budget cuts coming. Instead, he offered me something I never expected. The company was expanding into Seattle, Washington, opening a new development center, and they needed a lead engineer to head up the technical team. The position came with a substantial raise, nearly 40% more than I was currently making, plus better benefits and stock options. In the old version of my life, the version from 4 months ago, I would have immediately called Jessica. I would have discussed the pros and cons, weighed the impact on her career, asked if she would be willing to move, made it a joint decision. But sitting there in Mr. Harrison's office, I remembered her words. Be a man, make decisions, stop asking permission for everything. So I did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I accepted on the spot. I told him I would need 2 weeks to wrap up my current projects and get my personal affairs in order, but yes, I would take the position. Mr. Harrison seemed surprised by my quick answer. He had expected me to think about it, to discuss it with my wife, to take a few days. But he was also pleased. He shook my hand, told me this was exactly the kind of decisive leadership they needed in Seattle, and said he looked forward to seeing what I could build out there. As I walked out of his office, I felt something I had not felt in months. Control. Not over Jessica, not over anyone else, but over my own life and my own choices. That same afternoon, I called Devin and asked for the name of his cousin's divorce attorney. He texted me back within minutes. Patricia Townsend. Tough, fair, expensive, but worth it. I made an appointment for the following day, telling my assistant I had a doctor's appointment. Patricia's office was downtown, occupying the 15th floor of a glass building, with a view that probably cost more than my annual salary. She was exactly what I expected. Late 40s, impeccably dressed handshake like a vice grip, and eyes that assessed you in seconds. I laid everything out for her. The marriage timeline, the recent changes in Jessica, my suspicions, and now the job opportunity in Seattle. Patricia listened, took notes, and asked pointed questions. Did we have children? No. Did we own property together? We rented. Did we have significant shared debts? Just one car loan in both our names. Did we have a prenuptial agreement? Yes. My parents had insisted on it before the wedding, something simple that basically said we each kept what we brought into the marriage and split anything acquired together. Patricia leaned back in her chair and gave me a small, knowing smile. This is going to be easier than you think. With a prenup, no kids, minimal shared assets, and if she has been unfaithful, we can move quickly. But you need documentation. I need proof of infidelity if she tries to contest anything. I told her I did not have proof, just suspicions. She nodded. Then get proof. But do it legally. No hacking, no breaking into accounts. You do not have permission to access. If she has given you passwords in the past for shared devices, that is different. But be smart about this. I left her office with a clear plan. Document everything. Prepare financially. Move money into a separate account gradually and legally. Keep records of all joint expenses. Do not tip my hand. And most importantly, do not let emotion drive any decisions. Patricia would prepare the divorce papers so they would be ready when I needed them. I just had to give her the word. For the next week, I went through the motions of normal life while quietly preparing for a completely different future. I researched apartments in Seattle, looked at cost of living, mapped out neighborhoods. I transferred money from our joint savings into an individual account I had opened, documenting every transfer with notes about why it was legitimate. I was not hiding assets. I was protecting myself. Jessica barely noticed. She was too busy with her own life, her late nights, her mysterious phone calls that she always took in another room. Then came the night that confirmed everything I suspected, but hoped was not true. It was a Thursday. I was working late in the spare bedroom we used as an office, finishing up documentation before my move. Jessica had gone to shower after getting home around 9. She left her iPad on the coffee table in the living room. I walked past it on my way to get water, and that is when I saw the notification light up on the screen. A text message preview from someone listed only as T. Cannot wait to see you this weekend. He still does not know anything, right? My heart stopped. I stood there staring at that screen, the glass of water forgotten in my hand. I knew I should not look. I knew this was crossing a line, but I also knew that message was not meant for my eyes, which meant there was something to hide. Jessica and I had always shared our device passwords. It was not about control, it was just convenience. Need to check something on your phone while driving. Sure, the code is this. Forgot your tablet. Use mine here as the password, so technically I had access. Patricia's words echoed in my head. If she has given you passwords in the past for shared devices, that is different. I picked up the iPad and unlocked it. The Messages app was still open. I tapped on the conversation with T and started scrolling. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to read methodically to understand the full scope of what I was seeing. T was Trevor. From the context, he was a personal trainer at the gym, where Jessica had been spending so much time. The messages went back 3 months. 3 entire months of intimate conversations, plans to meet up, complaints about me. Too soft, no backbone. I need a real man. Those were Jessica's words about me, typed out casually in a text to another man. Trevor's responses were predictable. Leave him. You deserve better. You deserve me. But it was one particular exchange that made my blood run cold. It was from 2 weeks ago. Jessica had written, I will. Just need to figure out timing. Maybe get pregnant first so I can secure the house and alimony. I read that sentence 3 times, making sure I understood it correctly. She was planning to trap me with a pregnancy. To deliberately get pregnant so she could have leverage in a divorce. We rented, so there was no house to secure, but she clearly thought there was something to gain. The level of calculation, the cold manipulation, it was like reading about a stranger. This was not the woman I married. Or maybe it was, and I had just never seen this side of her. I did not panic. That is what surprised me most. I thought I would feel rage or heartbreak or betrayal so sharp it would double me over. Instead, I felt calm, clear, like everything suddenly made perfect sense. All the criticism, all the contempt, all the pushing me away, while simultaneously demanding I be different. She had been setting the stage for this, making me into the villain in her story so she could justify what she was doing. I took screenshots of everything, every message that showed the affair, every complaint about our marriage, every plan they had made, and especially that message about getting pregnant. I texted them all to myself and then to Patricia. Then I deleted the texts I had sent from Jessica's iPad so she would not see them immediately. I put the iPad back exactly where I had found it, screen off like nothing had happened. Then I went back to the office and continued working on my documents. I did not confront her. I did not cry. I did not break down. I simply added this information to my plan and kept moving forward. 2 days later, I made everything official. I confirmed my start date with the Seattle office, signed the employment contract, and gave notice at my current position. My manager was disappointed but understanding. I told him it was a career opportunity I could not pass up, which was true, just not the whole truth. I hired a moving company to come in 2 weeks and booked a one-way flight to Seattle the day after they loaded the truck. I found a decent apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it had good light and a view of the Sound. I transferred the deposit and signed a 6-month lease. Patricia had the divorce papers ready. We went through them line by line. Because of the prenup and the evidence of infidelity, it was straightforward. We each kept our own belongings. The car loan would be paid off, and the car would go to whoever wanted it more, or we would sell it and split the proceeds. No alimony, no child support, obviously, since there were no children. Clean break. Patricia added a clause specifically stating that any pregnancy conceived after the date of separation would require a paternity test before any financial responsibility could be established. She raised an eyebrow when she added that. You really think she will try it? I showed her the screenshot again. She nodded grimly. Good thinking. Thursday evening came. I had timed everything carefully. The movers were coming tomorrow to pack up my belongings. My flight was booked for Saturday morning. Everything was arranged. Jessica came home late as usual, breezing in around 8:30 with her yoga mat and gym bag. She seemed surprised to see me sitting at the dining table. I was not usually home when she arrived anymore. I had been making myself scarce working late, going to the gym, avoiding her as much as possible while living under the same roof. I watched her set down her things, kick off her shoes, head toward the kitchen. She still moved through our apartment like she owned it, like nothing had changed, like she had not been planning to trap me with a pregnancy so she could divorce me and take whatever she could. The casual confidence of someone who thought they were getting away with something. I waited until she turned back toward me, and then I slid the envelope across the table. It made a soft scratching sound against the wood. She looked at it, then at me, confusion crossing her face. "What is this?" Her voice was light, unsuspecting. "Divorce papers." The words came out calm, factual. "I am moving to Seattle next week for a new job. You need to sign these." The confusion on her face transformed into shock, her mouth actually falling open slightly. For several seconds she just stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. Then she laughed a short, disbelieving sound. "Are you insane? You cannot just decide this without talking to me." The irony was so thick I almost laughed myself. I leaned back in my chair, maintaining eye contact. I am being a man, Jessica. Making decisions. Taking charge. Is that not what you wanted? A man who does not ask permission for everything. I kept my voice even almost pleasant. It was important not to be emotional here. Not to give her ammunition. She stared at me, and I could see her mind working trying to figure out what had changed, how this had happened, without her seeing it coming. Her strategy shifted. The anger melted away, replaced by something softer. "Archer, come on, we can work this out. I know I have been difficult lately. I have been stressed with work, and I took it out on you. I am sorry. Let us talk about this." The transformation was impressive. Suddenly she was the reasonable one, the one willing to communicate, the one who wanted to save the marriage. If I had not read those messages, if I did not know about Trevor, if I did not understand her plan, maybe it would have worked. But I did know, and I was done. I shook my head slowly. "I saw your messages with Trevor, all of them. I know everything." The color drained from her face. For a moment she looked like she might pass out. Then she tried to recover. "That is not what you think. He is just a friend. We talk. It is harmless." Her words came out rushed, desperate. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots. I did not show them to her. I did not need to. My lawyer has copies of everything, including the part where you plan to get pregnant to secure assets in a divorce. Sign the papers, Jessica. It will be easier for both of us. She tried several more tactics over the next hour. Denial, anger, bargaining, tears. She called me, controlling, accused me of invading her privacy, said I had no right to look at her messages. She promised to cut off all contact with Trevor, swore it was just emotional support, nothing physical. She told me I was throwing away 3 years over nothing. She said I was being cruel and cold and not the man she married. I sat through all of it without responding much. I had said what I needed to say. The papers were on the table. That was all that mattered now. Finally, she seemed to realize I was serious. This was actually happening. She picked up the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out the papers. She read through them quickly, and I saw the moment she registered the paternity test clause. Her eyes widened. She looked at me, and whatever she saw in my expression made her look away. "Where am I supposed to go?" Her voice was small, now defeated. "You have 2 weeks before I leave. After that, the lease is in both our names. You can stay here, find a roommate, find a new place, whatever you want." I honestly do not care. That was harsh but true. I had spent weeks caring about her feelings, her needs, her happiness. I was done. She did not sign that night. She took the papers to her room and closed the door. I slept on the couch, which had become my bed anyway. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. She texted me later that day saying she would sign, but she needed a few days to figure things out. I told her that was fine. Patricia had already anticipated that and had given me copies. The next 2 weeks were strange. We barely spoke. We moved around each other like ghosts. She came home even later than before, sometimes not at all. I suspected she was staying with Trevor, but it did not matter. The movers came and packed up my belongings, my clothes, my books, my desk, my gaming setup, a few pieces of furniture that were mine before the marriage. It did not amount to much, a life reduced to boxes. The Friday before my flight, Jessica finally signed the papers. She left them on the kitchen counter with a note. "I hope you are happy." I did not respond to the note. I took the papers and dropped them off at Patricia's office. She would file them and handle everything from here. I did not need to be present for any of it. I was already gone in every way that mattered. Seattle in October is exactly what everyone says. Gray drizzly, but somehow beautiful in its moodiness. My apartment in Capitol Hill had wood floors and large windows that let in all the limited light the city had to offer. I could see the sound from my living room on clear days. The building was old but well-maintained, with character that new constructions never quite capture. I spent the first week setting up arranging furniture, learning the neighborhood, finding a good coffee shop within walking distance. Work was intense, but in a good way. The Seattle office was smaller, newer, filled with people excited about what they were building. Mr. Harrison had been right. They needed someone who could lead to make decisions, drive projects forward. For the first time in months, I felt competent, valued, like I was actually good at something. My team responded well to my management style. Clear communication, willingness to listen, but also able to make final calls when needed. Turns out being considerate and being decisive are not mutually exclusive. Who knew? Devin flew out to visit 3 weeks after I moved. He brought his hiking gear and a case of that terrible beer we used to drink in college. We spent the weekend exploring Mount Rainier, the Olympic National Forest, small towns along the coast. We did not talk much about Jessica or the divorce. He asked how I was doing once, and I told him the truth. Better, lighter, like I could breathe again. He nodded satisfied, and we moved on to other topics. Old memories, new plans, the kind of friendship that does not need constant maintenance to stay solid. One evening, we were sitting on my small balcony watching the sun set over the sound. The sky was doing that thing it does in the Pacific Northwest, turning every shade of orange and pink and purple. Devin asked me something that had clearly been on his mind. "So, what did you learn from all this?" I thought about it for a while before answering. I wanted to get it right. "You know, Devin, she told me to be a man." And I finally understood what that means. He looked at me waiting. It is not about being loud or dominant. It is not about making every decision without input. Real manhood is knowing your worth, setting boundaries, having the courage to walk away when you are not valued, understanding that strength is not about proving yourself to people who have already decided you are not enough. He considered this, then raised his beer. To being a man, then. The real kind. We clinked bottles and drank, and I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe, or just the absence of constant tension. Either way, it was good. The divorce finalized exactly 2 months after I moved. Patricia called to tell me it was done. Jessica had not contested anything. She had even paid her portion of the remaining car loan so we could sell it and split the proceeds. No drama, no last-minute demands. Clean break, just like I had wanted. Patricia mentioned almost as an afterthought that there had been no pregnancy claims. I was not surprised. Once I was gone, once there was no benefit to the manipulation, the pregnancy plan had disappeared. I did not feel triumphant when the divorce was final. I did not feel vindicated or victorious. Mostly I just felt tired in a good way, like after a long workout or a hard day of work. The kind of tired that means something is finished and you can rest now. I texted Devin. "It is done." He sent back a simple thumbs up and a message. "Drinks tomorrow?" I smiled. "Yeah, drinks tomorrow." Life moved forward. I dated casually, nothing serious. I was not ready for serious, and I was honest about that. I focused on work, on exploring my new city, on building friendships with coworkers and neighbors. I started rock climbing at a gym near my apartment, something I had always wanted to try but never had. Turns out, I was decent at it. I joined a book club of all things hosted by the coffee shop down the street. I read books I never would have picked up before and had conversations with people who had completely different perspectives. I learned to cook better than I ever had when I was trying to impress Jessica. I made mistakes, burned dinners, overslept important meetings, dated someone who turned out to be completely wrong for me. Normal human mistakes that did not feel like failures of my masculinity. I thought about Jessica sometimes, not often and not with anger. Mostly I wondered if she was happy now, if Trevor had turned out to be everything she thought he would be, if she had learned anything from what happened. I hoped she was okay. I genuinely did. Not because I wanted her back or because I forgave what she did, but because holding on to bitterness felt like carrying around weight I no longer needed. She had wanted a different kind of man. I had wanted a different kind of partner. We both ended up with the freedom to find what we actually needed. One Sunday morning, about 6 months after the divorce, I was having coffee on my balcony. It was one of those rare Seattle mornings when the sun comes out and everything sparkles. My phone rang. Devin, he and his girlfriend were thinking about visiting next month. Could they crash at my place? Yeah, of course. Bring sleeping bags, though. I only have one bedroom. He laughed and we made plans. After we hung up, I sat there for a while, just drinking my coffee, watching boats move across the sound. I thought about that night at the dining table, sliding those papers across to Jessica. I thought about her face, the shock, the realization that she had underestimated me completely. She had wanted me to be a man, according to her definition, loud, dominant, controlling. What she got instead was someone who quietly built a better life and walked away without looking back. That is the thing about real strength. It does not need an audience. It does not need validation. It just does what needs to be done and moves forward. Have you ever been told you need to change who you are to be enough for someone? Drop a comment below and share your story. If this resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss more stories like this one. Share this with someone who needs to hear that walking away is not giving up. It is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to choose yourself when the time comes. Remember, sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. Just a life so good you forget to look back. Take care of yourselves out there.